Hi, my name is Deanne Gomez, and this is Mental Health Super Omnia. Mental health above all. We identify and understand mental health issues and the paths for help. Today, we want to review the latest research on the positives and negatives of gaming for both our teens and us. Dr. Zoey Yu is an award-winning scientist from the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's, the top-rated children's hospital in the country, and part of the Harvard system. Zoey, can you give us a little bit more of an introduction and summarize the latest research you and your team just published on the positives and negatives of gaming and who it affects most?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Zhiying. I also go by Zoey. I'm a research scientist working at the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital. I'm also a faculty member at the Harvard Medical School. I'm an instructor in pediatrics. I study adolescents' interactive media use and mental health with a big focus on video games, the benefits, the possible risks, what problematic gaming looks like, and how parents can help navigate all of this. And here's my little confession. Like, I myself is a gamer. I checked my Steam account last night. I've been playing Dota 2 for 4,000 hours in the past 10 years. It's almost like a full-time job for me.
Wow.
Right. So I've definitely lived this from both sides. I've experienced the genuine benefits of gaming, including like the friendships I built through game, the skills, the sense of accomplishment, but I've also felt the downsides. I personally struggle with what people call today gaming disorder or problematic gaming when I was younger. So that struggle is actually what brought me to this field, going to graduate school and building a career studying gaming and adolescent mental health. It's been like having a conversation with my younger self. The recent study we conducted, we surveyed 1,500 adolescents aged 13 to 17 in the United States. We asked them like what types of games they play, how often they play, who they're typically playing with, and their loneliness, anxiety level. We definitely see people who are lonely, especially lonely boys, they're more motivated, more likely to play and communicate with strangers. But that type of play and communication pattern is also possibly associated with problematic gaming. So we definitely see both the benefits and possible risks of gaming.
Okay. We also have Jonathan Mauger, an experienced therapist who is a longtime gamer himself, and he works with teens, families, and others on gaming as well as other issues. Jonathan, I'd like you to give a little bit more of an introduction about yourself, and I want you to, in particular, start talking about the first rule in terms of parent interaction. Hey, I'm going to limit the amount of time that you're going to spend on gaming. Is that an appropriate thing to do or not? Jonathan?
Hi, so I'm Jonathan Mauger. You got it right the first time, and my pronouns are they, he. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm an aspiring play therapist, and I've been playing video games since before I could read. Video games are probably one of the biggest things I see for teenagers in my practice. I don't know any family I work with who their kids have game where it hasn't come up as a conflict. Zoey, one of the things I was really interested in when I was reading your research was this piece about the difference between like interacting with strangers versus interacting with like friends in your reading, and how like it seems like interacting with strangers seems to be more indicative of more challenging or more problematic use.
Yeah, I think you're understanding the research in the right direction. I'm happy to provide more clarifications on that aspect. I want to take a little bit of time talking about a big theory in psychology because my background is from communication and social psych, which is called self-determination theory. This theory argues that people have at least three basic psychological needs. competence, like autonomy, and relatedness. Relatedness is a big one, especially for adolescents, this turbulent teenager age years. And this is where I think the research and some stereotypes really diverge, because some of the stereotypes is that gaming is isolating, right? Kids alone in a dark room with a big headset and loud keyboard. But both our research and studies from other groups show that gaming has become actually a third place for today's teenagers, that social place outside school and family, where community, the sense of belonging actually happens. Um, in that study, we surveyed like 1,500 adolescents all across the United States. And we found that lonelier kids, especially lonely boys, were significantly more likely to play with strangers and engage in real-time communication with them. On one hand, this shows the social potential of games. These kids are actively seeking connection. They want to expand their social network by playing and communicating with strangers. Because they're feeling lonely, that indicates there's a gap between their desired social support and the actual social support they've received. So, but another point is, the more they played and communicated primarily with strangers, the more likely they were to report problematic gaming patterns, including preoccupation with gameplay, lose of interest in other activities. They're having fights with their families. They continue playing video games despite negative consequences. So all the results, they suggest that kids who are already socially struggling may at a higher risk of problematic gaming. So they're drawn to games for connection, which makes sense, but without the anchoring of high quality, real life friendships or relationships. The gaming can be just consuming. The connections they make can be very superficial. So gaming can be a healthy, complementary social outlet, but when it becomes someone's entire social world, we always see problems and issues.
I really love that framing of like games as a third world. I think that really resonates with me from my childhood, third place. I think especially at least here in Philly, we've seen a lot of struggles with third places for kids. I mean, I think one of the big malls, the fashion district, you can't be in there unless you're under 18, if you're under 18 without a parent, right? And so like this is become kind of a digital place for kids to connect with. And I see that every day. And I think I see a lot of parents who really struggle with that because they're going, well, when I was a kid, you came home and you weren't allowed to come back in the house until the lights came on.
Oh, that's true, but now it's different. Sometimes it's hard to get together in person. You don't necessarily live in the same neighborhood as your best friend in school. If we jump into a game together, that can happen immediately, right? It doesn't take planning, it doesn't take rights, it doesn't take coordination. It's just open our laptop and we can play together. It's still togetherness. It still help us maintain our friendship. I think that's a more healthy way to play with friends rather than strangers. That's also one of our research findings.
So when I look at video games and I look at how they're developing, they're actually infiltrating the business world or the work world. So, for example, I had some dealings with race car drivers, and they actually used video games to prepare for a particular track. Different tracks they would use, different video games or different settings on different elements of video games to work on those tracks. Same true for flight simulators, drone operators. Actually, I visited a lab up at MIT. School maybe a little bit better than Harvard, I'm not sure. But they were doing
Really?
Harvard's a much nicer campus.
they, they had developed a game that were working with nuclear reactors. So games are permeating all sorts of work. So there's a lot of positives. But on the negative side, when you talked about parents and the not coming home till the lights come on, it's natural to want to put limits on the amount of TV they're watching, limits on the amount of time they're spending on gaming, particularly someone who spent 4,000 hours on a particular game, right? So what about limits? Is that good or is that bad? As a parent, as a grandparent, should I be providing limits to the children?
Yeah, I can. Yes, Johnson, do you want to?
Absolutely, right. We know in gaming and in all things that research shows that the best way to parent is a combination of having a good relationship with your child and setting firm, reasonable limits and boundaries, right? Kids are born with a natural desire to want and to be and to have urges and impulses. And part of the really hard job of parents is we have to raise a good human. And how do we raise a good human? We raise a human to understand how to navigate the frustrations of they can't do whatever they want. There are rules and expectations, and we've got laws we need to follow. We need to build empathy for others. And so absolutely limits are important.
I do agree. We actually, I actually had a few recent studies focusing on parental mediation, like how can parents set effective rules in the house to regulate or help manage their kids' media use. But I would say the risks associated with video game are complex. There's no easy solution to that. I would push back on some popular advice. For example, like you can only play video games 2 hours a day. This type of advice. It's easy. It's actionable, but we may not fully understand the definition or the clinical criteria of problematic gaming. It's not only about the shared time kids spend on gaming. Like some kids play 20, even 30 hours a week occasionally, and they're thriving. Like same here. They can be very healthy. They can be engaged students and friends, but another kid who play like 15 hours a week, his life is falling apart because of this. We see this type of kids as well. So the number of hours could be a red flag, but it's not the diagnosis. The real question is like,
Well, so
is
that's
game
interesting.
interfering with other essential activities? Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that's an interesting point, Zoey. So for me, hours is an easy go-to. Spend an hour, spend 2 hours, time to stop, etc. I understand that that's actionable, and I also understand why you're saying that that's not necessarily what I should be doing. I should be looking at other things. So I want to know two things, okay, from you, if I could. One is, what is it that I'm looking for as a parent that says, uh-oh, I have a developing problem here and I need to intervene with my child? So what am I looking for that says that there may be a problem? And second, do I have a responsibility to understand what is happening in some of those games? So my analogy is this. If I were to sit a child in front of a TV and say, oh, go ahead and watch Sesame Street. I don't even know if they're still producing it anymore, but if they're watching Sesame Street, okay, great show. But I would never set a 6-year-old in front of a TV and say, hey, watch Chucky 2, and have the, poor little kid get scarred for life, right? Nor would I take a 12-year-old and have them watch some hard R movie that, may be fine in general, but will have subject matter that is probably going to be way too mature for them. Okay. So what's my responsibility as a parent
Mhm.
to understand about the games, and what am I looking for in terms of problematic behavior?
This is a great question. I feel like a lot of parents will be very interested in this. And I do feel like parenting is one of the most difficult jobs in the world because there are so many things we need to understand and navigate. Um, yeah, back to your question, I think I can have three different like recommendations and suggestions. First, I think parents have the responsibility to understand what is going on in games, especially the one your kids primarily play. At least like 20 years ago, when we start thinking about risks associated with video games, a lot of researchers emphasize in terms of the content of games. There's a line of research showing there's a positive association between playing video games and the aggressive behaviors, aggressive thoughts. So, especially for parents with younger kids, their impulsive control system is still developing. We have to be aware of this risk, and we need to understand what's going on in the games. It's better to have open conversation with your kids. Like, what do you play today? What's fun there? Um, the other thing is how we define, measure problematic gaming. It's based on addiction based framework. Some of the addiction based framework is from gambling or substance use. But this type of research took off in later 1990s, and then in 2013, the American Psychiatric Association added internet gaming disorder to the DSM-5 as a condition needing further study. So they were saying we are seeing something clinically significant here, but we need more research to clarify what is a real problem. 5 years later, in 2018, the World Health Organization further and officially recognized gaming disorder in ICD-11, International Classification of Diseases. That was a big deal. That meant the global health community was saying, yes, for some people, gaming can becoming dysfunctional in ways meet clinical criteria and threshold for a disorder. So the formal diagnosis requires impaired control over gaming, increasing priority given to gaming over other essential interests and activities, and continuation escalation of gaming despite negative consequences, including like fights with your families, like dropping your GPA. And these patterns need to be severe enough to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational functioning for at least 12 months. So for parents, it might be easier or straightforward to say whether gaming is systematically crowding out sleep, school engagement, whether your kids are playing games and they cannot get homework done on time, whether they're displacing some face-to-face communication or interaction with their friends. They don't want to hang out with their friends because they want to play video games. They don't want to attend their grandfather's 80 years birthday party because they want to play video games. Um, Physical activity is a big thing. If they don't want to attend their basketball practice because they want to play video games, that type of thing happens. We say the kids are at higher risk of problematic gaming. If you see your kids are doing well in terms of school performance, they have best friends in school, they always hang out physically with their friends, and you are doing well with like you have regular conversations, meaningful talks with your kids, even if they play like 15 hours, 20 hours a week, that could be temporary. That could be like completely healthy, not an indicator of problematic gaming.
Yeah. I also, yeah, I really appreciate bringing up the point about like having conversations about what kids are playing, because, I think we do that a lot with media, but we don't do it as much with video games. I think part of the struggle is that you know, especially for like my parents did not grow up with video games, right? I'm a younger millennial. I was one of the first generations who really had like games, like gaming consoles, right? Um, and
Same
like,
here.
yeah, and my parents didn't know what Call of Duty was.
Mhm.
I was playing it at 13, right? Where I'm playing a military shooter in the wake of 9/11. And like, you know, video games are where I heard my first racial slur. Like, there are definite risks to these environments, but one of the biggest protective factors is having conversations about that. You know, something that I recommend to a lot of parents is the group Common Sense Media. They have a really great website that has really detailed descriptions of every video game, every movie, what's in there, what's the level of violence, really great information, and YouTube playthroughs. Parents should be talking to their kids, seeing what games they're playing, and either watch it with their kids or go on YouTube and watch gameplay playthrough to get a sense of what's going on so that they can have bigger conversations. You know, I also appreciate, you know, we're talking about problematic gaming, is that a lot of games these days are also putting in features that encourage really in-depth engagement with them.
Right.
I don't know any parent I've worked with who hasn't come up to me and go, "What the heck is a battle pass?" Right? Where we have these like time limited rewards that encourage really just in-depth playing over and over and over again to get these rewards.
Right.
And so I think really having the conversations and are saying like, these are the systems that your kids are interacting with. There are positives, right? These can be really great social tools for them. And especially like a lot of the neurodivergent kids I work with, like, oh, hey, video game is something I can talk about friends when I might not know what to talk about.
Yeah.
But there are challenges too.
Right. It's a big topic, a very conversation.
One of the problems I have with playing the games, I mean, it's one thing to understand what a game is, and looking at a description of a game is good. But if I try and play a game with a grandchild, first of all, they can beat me starting at the age of 6. Okay, and it becomes not fun for them, and certainly not fun for me, because I just can't even keep up, right? I mean, like, they're done and I'm still trying to complete a race or whatever nonsense that it is I'm supposed to be doing. So parents are going to be very frustrated by that. So is it valid advice to say, you know, try and play the game you know, with your child, or are there other things you can do that will still allow the parent to understand what's happening and know when there are risks and pitfalls?
I 100% recommend parents play games with their kids, right? I think that joint attention, even if it's, you know, even if you're getting your butt kicked over and over again, is such a powerful tool to connect with your kid. And also, there's a lot more cooperative games out there. Right. One of the big ones of the last 10 years is Minecraft. Minecraft is an open world game where you are creating a story with your kid. Right. And you don't have to be super good. You can be, your kid's going to go off and do all the fighting, and you can build a nice house for yourselves. Right.
Yeah. Definitely.
We've gotten away from just purely competitive games into games that are like competitive with a teamwork aspect or just fully cooperative as well. And I think all three of those have benefits.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the idea. Actually, the research on parental mediation has identified 3 major strategies for parents to do. First is active mediation, which is having conversations with your kids, talk about what they have been playing recently and what is fun about the game. The second is restrictive mediation, set up clear rules and communicate these rules in a more autonomous, supportive way. You have to do this not because I asked you to do this. You have to do this because this is good for yourself, and explain that. So that is highly associated with adolescents' perceived reasonableness and benefit of these rules, and they are more likely to internalize and follow the rules. That's shown by our research. And third is co-use. So back in the traditional mass media television age, we encourage parents to watch shows with their kids and have active conversation discussions. And now they can definitely explore a game together. They do not have to compete with each other all the time. Another example could be Zelda. That's one of my favorite games. Sometimes on my days off, I wake up and ask myself, like, what do I want to do today? I can just explore the world and cook weird food. It's my favorite part. Or if you want to go after the boss, just go for it. That is another way to practice autonomy for your kids. You can let your kids make all the decisions and follow their lead. If they're better, just follow their lead. That can be beneficial for your family relationships as well.
One of the things we talk about in play therapy is play as a miniaturization of the world, right? And that there's these different themes in play. And one of the themes is mastery, which is building confidence, building kind of our self-concept and building our ability to do things. And one of them is nurturing, being able to teach and take care of. And playing video games is a way to encourage both those plays in your kid, right?
Right. Yeah.
It can be really good for your kid's development to get the sense that, oh yeah, I can do something better than the adults in my life. Wow. Right.
Yeah.
My sister and I just got my mom into video games.
Oh, cool.
We bought her a Switch and got her Animal Crossing.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's been such a great way for us to connect. We get to show each other our cute little island and all our villagers. And it's like, it has offered us another way to connect and deepen our relationship. And it's been so awesome for her to come into our world and
Right.
see what me and my sister have been doing for years.
So, Jonathan,
great
you talk
move.
about positives. You talk about the positives with your family and whatnot, but what about negatives? What have you seen on the negative side where a parent would go, "Whoa, we got a major problem."
Yeah. There's a lot of risks with video games. Like I mentioned earlier, first time I heard racial slurs was on video games, right? You are interacting with strangers. A lot of strangers who play video games these days are 20 to 30. Right. And, I think a lot of people tend to, when they hear strangers on the internet, they tend to think of like risk of sexual trafficking or risk of being sexually assaulted. Right. Those types of things. But we have adults who are, in the anonymity of the internet. Right. Sometimes the worst behaviors come out. Right. I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard little kids saying just awful things over voice chat, because that's been the culture, right? The other thing that I think about a lot is that video games have changed a lot in the 20 years. 20 years ago, video games were like a board game. You'd buy a game, it would be a fully packaged game, and that would be it, right? And now I kind of view games as like often marketplaces with games attached, right? I remember a couple years ago, I had a parent come in and they were furious with their kid. My 8-year-old spent $200 on Robux, which is a virtual currency. Right. And like, of course, the kid doesn't understand what $200 means, right? But
wait a minute. Wait. How do I, as a child, how do I do that? Am I presented with opportunities to buy stuff and I just buy it? Did my mother or my father put their credit card in there and tell me? Explain how this happens.
Yeah.
And by the way, can I spend $200 of her money as well?
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, so it's often the latter. It's that so a lot of, and it differs from game to game and console to console, but a lot of them, right? Most consoles these days have an online marketplace, and so you can have cards just associated with an account. And a lot of consoles have been good about setting up like parent restrictions and needing like passwords, but kids can get those. And so what often happens is a parent will buy something, the kid will ask for something on the game. Parents will go, okay, they put their credit card information in and don't realize it gets saved, right? In Roblox, for example, Roblox is, for those that don't know, is this platform where it's just a bunch of little mini games, right? That people can make and upload. It's what I used to consider like the Flash game revolution of the early 2000s, where it's just like a bunch of browser games. Now it's just we have this place for it, and it's actually one of the biggest marketplaces in gaming right now. They pull something like $16 billion a year in revenue. And so it's what ends up happening is you have what we call microtransactions, where there's little things in the game you can unlock for a premium currency, which you buy with real money. And so kids will like, oh, I want this thing. And then they go to use it and go, oh, you don't have enough Roblox. Go to our webpage to buy it. And then the way these companies set up, you get more if you spend more money. They encourage bulk purchasing. And so kids go, oh, well, I can get 500 Robux for $5, or I can get 24,000 if I spend $200. And to an 8-year-old, $5 and $200 are the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
It's why I really encourage, if you're going to be getting your kids any sort of premium currency, go to a store and buy a digital card. Don't put your actual card on the account.
That's a good suggestion. We also have like parental control dashboards available for many of the video games.
Yeah.
Definitely take advantage of that.
And it's hard, right?
It is.
I've been playing games for 30 years, and I often think about the Simpson meme of, I used to be with it, now I don't know what it is, and it'll happen to you. There's so many consoles nowadays. There's so many with the PlayStations and Xboxes and Switches, and now the virtual reality. And all of them have their own way of doing parental modification. They all have their own way of setting up parental controls. The interfaces are different. And like, I've been interacting with this technology for 30 years. I don't expect my mom to be able to pick up a PlayStation controller and figure out how to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly why parenting is one of the most difficult jobs. But we still recommend parents to monitor their kids' media use to what they can, because monitoring is a big part of parental involvement, their kids' media use.
So, Zoe, earlier you mentioned lack of sleep as an issue that occasionally happens and indicates there's a problem. When I think about teenagers, it seems to me that they all have a lack of sleep. They all sleep in. They sleep in later than they if you let them, they'd all miss the school bus, or almost all of them would miss the school bus. So how do I know there's a lack of sleep? What is it? Am I looking for crankiness? Because teenagers can be cranky anyway. What am I looking for here?
This is a great question. We just had a paper submit to a journal looking at social media use and sleep quality, but we were using self-reported survey. We asked adolescents the quality of their sleep, including both the amount of sleep and quality of sleep. Amount of sleep, it's not just like how many hours they sleep, it's also like when they go to bed, when they actually fall asleep, when they wake up. And the quality means like You probably don't wake up during night, like whether you feel sleepy in the morning, whether you feel refreshing in the morning. That's more like common method using research, using self-report data to assess sleep quality amount. For parents, I think one of the most effective ways is to have conversation with your kids and also your daily observation. If they always have trouble getting up early, if they always have trouble catching the school bus, that could be a signal.
Okay. Now, Jonathan, you mentioned about sexual predators on these games or on social media. So let's talk about that just for a second. Clearly, in preparation for today, I've talked to people that did a lot of gaming, people that did a little gaming, just to see what was happening out there. And it's clear that people, in fact, are meeting people from all over the world. If they ask, they'll find out that they're playing with somebody from Germany or somebody from going the other way, somebody from Asia or
one of my best friends growing up was a wine salesman from Canada.
Okay, so there you go. But how do I, as a parent, I'm not worried about that particular friend. I'm worried about the predator. How do I know when my child has interacted with a predator?
It's not an easy one to know. I think a lot of the prevention for it, right? And by the way, research is clear about this. Strangers and sexual assault is the smallest case, right? Unfortunately, sexual assault most frequently happens with someone who a child already has a relationship with and already knows, right? But I think there is a bigger conversation of how do we make sure our kids are being safe online, right? Mm-hmm. And I think to a lot of that is actually a lot of stuff that is very connected to a lot of the research that Zoey has been doing about we need to talk to kids like they're people, right? We need to talk to them about what it means to be safe online. We need to talk to them in ways that are going to be relevant to them, right? One of the things I really appreciate about Zoey's research was that Zoey was not just looking at what parent rules are set up, but also what are the kids' views of their rules, right? And how does that affect their following of the rules, right? With games, with social media, we need to have conversations with kids about we can't assume unless this is my friend from school that has told me this is my username, that anything that this person is saying is true. We shouldn't be giving out our personal information online, right? Right. We should use hey, we're at the point where I'm ready for you to play online with our people. Let's think about a username that you'd like to go by when you talk online, right? For years, I was TK. That was my nickname online. And that's all my friends knew me as, right? They didn't know my real name. Because my parents had that conversation with me about we don't give out our personal information. We don't give out our address, right? Right. And there's a larger topic I don't think is suited for here about how do we teach kids about body autonomy? How do we teach them about consent? How do we teach them about risk factors with sexual predation?
Yeah, I think this is a good point. Just to add a little bit to this, our research also found that when kids are playing with others, they sometimes go to Discord instead of in-game chat and have ongoing continuous conversation with the other person. I talked to many parents. One of the parents gave me some suggestions I think were very thoughtful, that they only allow their kids to engage in real-time communication with people in their friend list. And their friend list only has kids that their own kid know in offline world. who are their real friends. So you're allowed to have conversations, extensive ongoing conversations with your friends. But for strangers, you can talk about games. You can talk about how to coordinate a fight in a game, but not other things. Your address, your real name, where do you go to study, that type of thing is not allowed. I think that could be a good recommendation.
I've also used Discord to help parents more moderate,
Mm.
where I'll teach parents how to use Discord, and I'll have them create a Discord server where they're in it. They get to see everything. They're the mod. And then they talk to the other parents, and we go, okay, when our kids play together, instead of using voice chat in game, they're going to use this Discord server where I control everything. And I can see
So
it.
back it up.
Yeah.
Back it up just for a second. So here I am. I'm a brand new. I'm a parent whose child is brand new to gaming, and you just used a word. I don't even know what that means. Discord.
Yeah.
What is that?
Discord is an app it's kind of like a mini social media platform. You have these little like bubbles of like, we call it a server, right? Where you can set up a voice chat, and you can set up various, like, think of it almost like a forum. And the nice thing about Discord is that you need to be invited to join the server. It's not something,
Right.
Some of them are set up that anyone can join, but you can set up so that it's only for people you invite. It's a very easy software. It's free.
And it's a big thing in gaming communities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one that a lot of kids are going to know, because there's a lot of streamers use Discords for their channels, right? Podcasts have Discords for discussions and episode stuff, right? And gamers use it for searching games. And it's just kind of a platform that enables alternate chat and alternate voice.
Okay. So Zoe, it's kind of, I want to deal with the parents' uncomfortableness here a little bit, because when I think about parents, I think about grandparents, I think about kind of like almost the history of the United States, right? I mean, 100 years ago, most of our family were agrarians, right? They were farmers of one sort or another. Today, hardly anybody is a farmer. 1% or 2% of the United States are farmers. Everybody then moved into manufacturing. When I was growing up, many guys knew how to fix cars. Okay, I didn't, but many guys didn't know how to fix cars. Today, cars are nothing but computers, and guys don't spend time working on their cars anymore. You don't work on your car anymore. Yeah, you take it to a dealer, or you take it to a repair shop, and they bring out the computers and look at the codes. So my point is that the world is changing.
Yeah.
Here is this new world of gaming where you're spending thousands of hours talking about stuff I don't even understand, right? Is this bad? Is this good? What should I be feeling about this?
Yeah, both my personal and professional experience have told me that there are both good and bad things about gaming. I'm sorry, this is not not an easy, straightforward conclusion. But as parents, we have to know gaming is not inherently bad, because, like I said,
Okay.
it can help fulfill basic psychological needs like competence, autonomy, and relatedness. But we have to be aware of what games our kids are playing and the pattern of playing. One thing actually I really want to talk to Jonathan and Dan about is the relationship between underlying mental health issues and problematic gaming. Because we have a clinic for Interactive Media and Internet Disorders at Boston Children's Hospital. We call it CIMIT. The founder of our lab, the Digital Wellness Lab, Dr. Michael Rich, has seen hundreds of patients at CIMIT. One of our observations that problematic gaming very often co-occur with underlying mental health issues, especially ADHD, depression, and anxiety. And here's what is interesting, I think, when we effectively treat underlying mental health issues, we found that problematic gaming often improves or resolves on its own. So this kind of suggests that gaming is not the root cause of mental health issues. It can be something like a coping mechanism. If kids are already struggling socially, they're not making good friends, they cannot find their self-worth, they cannot get a sense of accomplishment. Games are there, always there. They're fun, they're easy, they can make me feel like I'm busy with something and I can escape from whatever bothers me at that moment. So
I think that's an excellent point. And I appreciate the work that Michael Rich has done on that. We actually have done a podcast with him. So, I'm glad you mentioned him. But when your child has ADHD or they have depression, how do I deal with that? Am I reading a book? Am I taking him to the lab? Am I taking him to what am I doing? How am I solving this problem?
A little bit of all the above, right? Any kid struggling can benefit from counseling, right? That can be ADHD, that can be autism, that can be anxiety, that can be depression, that can be any other diagnosis from a DS. And you don't even have to have one of those to benefit from counseling, right? It also benefits parents to get support themselves, right? It's just like when we go on an airplane, you got to put on your own gas mask before you help others, right? I agree with Zoe's point that technology is, right? It's here, whether we want to be or not, right? And there are some good parts of that technology and there are some bad parts of that technology. I remember I went to go see a live performance of one of the Candlelight performances, a live performance of classical music at the temple in Center City, Philadelphia. Beautiful room. And in the middle of Vivaldi's Four Seasons, I found myself wanting to pull my phone out. And just going, why? Why do I want to do this, right? Because my brain is so conditioned to check that, right? But also as someone who is an ADHD, anxious, autistic, and was all of those as a teen, video games were a way for me to help regulate myself, right? I'd have a long day of being at school where there's all these social demands that I was struggling to navigate. And all of a sudden I got home and I had a video game with very clear rewards, very clear expectations,
right.
instant feedback, which was really regulating to my body. But it could also be challenging because then I'd stop and I'd have the dysregulation of stopping the game, right? It'd be hard to tear myself away. Right. There's no easy answer to helping kids navigate the world, right? Be that 100 years ago or now, right? Kids don't come with instruction manuals. But I think getting support, whether that be professionally from people like me, looking to researchers like Zoey, or relying on family are all really important strategies.
Definitely agree.
So, Zoey, let me ask you one quick question.
Sure.
I've read a lot about social media and the negatives of social media, how it's harming children, harming particularly young girls, young women. Is social media and gaming the same thing?
I don't think they are the same thing, but they definitely share some features, especially in terms of like social features and interactivity. Because both social media and video games can facilitate social interactions. We can do self-disclosure and self-presentation. We can manage our do impression management through social media and also video game. We can do a lot of things on both platforms. So I would say both social media and gaming belong to the broader category of interactive media because this interactivity is one of the most fascinating aspects that define this type of technology.
Okay, and one other question, real quick.
Mhm.
The negatives of gaming, does it affect more boys or more girls?
I would say the impacts of gaming influence both boys and girls, but in different ways.
Okay.
For example, our recent research found that boys are more likely to be serious gamers. They are more likely to play games using computer, like play more competitive games. The girls are more likely to play collaborative games with their mobile phones. So they are using video games for different purposes. It's one of the reasons why gaming can have different impact on them.
The culture of video games is also very historically been a boys' club.
Right.
We are only a decade out from Gamergate, which was a really misogynistic backlash to women in video games.
Right.
There is a lot of harassment that happens of being a woman or someone who sounds like a woman, right? Or AFAB in like gaming spaces.
Right.
That has thankfully changed. I think we are starting to see that women are being more allowed into gaming spaces, which is something I'm really proponent of. I think video games should be for everyone, but there are still a lot of cultural pieces in the video game world which make being a woman in video game spaces very difficult.
Right.
So, Jonathan, you made an excellent point. When you were speaking, you said someone that sounds like a woman, and then you used, I thought, an acronym or a word.
Yeah.
What was that word?
AFAB, assigned female at birth. Right, moving away from male and female, but understanding that gender is a spectrum, that you don't necessarily have to be a woman to be treated like a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just didn't get the acronym. So Zoe, you agree with Jonathan on his key point?
I do.
Ignoring AFAB.
I do agree. But one of the interesting findings from our research is we asked how much time you spend playing video games every week. We found boys and girls they report pretty much the same amount of time. If I remember correctly, 4 hours per day, weekends, and then a slight shorter time on weekdays. But although they report a similar amount of time playing video games, they play different types of games and they play differently. Like I said, girls are more likely to play collaborative instead of competitive games. I think one of our interpretations is that boys are still more likely to base their self-worth on competition, but girls are more likely to base their self-worth on social approval and nurturing social relationships. That's also a pattern we observe with social media use. So definitely different aspects from video games and social media can influence boys and girls differently.
So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to give each of you a minute or so to kind of summarize our discussion today and make whatever points that you need to make. Zoe, I'm going to give you the last word. So Jonathan, I'm going to let you go first.
Put me in the hot seat. It's the hot spot. Okay. No, I mean, I think we've talked about a lot of different aspects of gaming today. You know, I really appreciate talking about the challenges of being a parent in the year of our Lord 2026, of interacting with these various technological systems that most parents these days do not grow up with. Of navigating the challenges of video games and where they start becoming problematic, right? That there are good parts to video games, that they are social spaces, and that there are also a lot of risks with video games, right? There's content and stories and other people, and social isolation that can happen in these spaces. You know, I also really appreciate even learning a little bit from Zoe about like, oh wow, like girls are much more playing video games than they were 20 years ago, which I think is a really great thing.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you. You've said everything I wanted to say. I think we had a great discussion about both the benefits and like possible risks associated with video games. As a 10 years Dota player, I don't think video games are inherently bad, but problematic gaming is becoming more and more common. So parents have to be aware of both of the benefits and potential harms of video games. The goal is we can leverage the social power of video games for other good aspects, but we also need to be cautious about the content, the dysfunctional way of video play. We want to be the master of the technology, not the slave. That's our goal.
Excellent summary. Okay, let me just say that our sponsor today is Equilibria Psychological and Consultation Services. It's an insurance-based provider whose mission is to help individuals achieve their personal potential and long-term growth by compassionately and respectfully helping clients live in balance. Visit equilibriapcs.com. equilibriapcs.com. You can look for them on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also look for me on Instagram, Daniel J. Gomez 24, and on LinkedIn. Now for the disclaimer. I am not a medical professional, and I am not providing medical advice. The opinion of our speakers is solely their own. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be reproduced without the express written consent of EPCS Management, LLC. Zoe and Jonathan, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you both so much.